My name is James Perkins. I work for IBM. I'm a longtime open source contributor. Been working on Wildfly for over 15 years now. I'm the project lead for REST-EZ. I'm the co-lead for the Jakarta EE specification, the Jakarta REST specification. And I've created several integration tools for Wildfly testing and stuff like that we'll go through here. So some of the things we'll cover today is we're just going to check the current state of Jakarta EE and Jakarta REST. Yeah. Oh, probably not. See if I can figure out how to do that. I don't use Zoom very often, so share. Did something pop up here? Let's see.
Oh, this is the web version of it.
Yeah, I don't have it installed because I don't ever use it. It usually works. Oh, there we go. Share screen.
I think the LG, right?
Yeah, LG. That's the one we want to share. There we go. Perfect.
Unless you want to decide to set up instead.
Okay. There we go. So we'll check the current state of Jakarta EE and REST. We're going to look at some modernization of how Wildfly is using provisioning rather than just a typical zip download. We're going to look into some testing Jakarta EE applications, and we're going to look at building and deploying with Docker and with Podman in my case, technically, I guess. And then there's going to be some live demos. So where Jakarta EE stands today, it is an active and evolving platform. Maybe it's more to me because I'm definitely in it, but it's definitely, the meetings tend to be quite a few people. Jakarta EE 11 was released in 2025. It was supposed to be released in 2024, but there was a major refactor of the test compliance kit, the TCK, which took some time. So it was definitely using a bunch of old stuff, and now it's Maven based and using Archillion and much easier to use. The specs are kept up to date fairly regularly. So it's a fairly active community in that sense. There's pretty strong vendor support and a pretty strong community behind it. And it really is cloud native ready. So the Jakarta REST highlights. So the name changed, as probably everybody knows, from JaxRS to Jakarta REST during the whole move from Oracle and rebranding from Java EE to Jakarta EE. There's a new in Jakarta REST 4.0. There is a new SE Bootstrap API that you can use for programmatic startup of just a plain REST server. We're going to see that in a demo coming up and in a test that I created. There's much better support for multi-part types. It's a lot easier to work with when you do file uploads and things like that, which seems to be pretty common for web applications. It's got better CDI support and better support with JSON binding, and it's the foundation for the modern day. It's the modern day REST API for Jakarta EE. So provisioning in Wildfly, traditionally you'd have to download the zip or a tar, unzip it onto your server and deploy a WAR to it or an ear or whatever enterprise deployment you want to deploy. And that's usually around 400 megabytes that you're downloading and then unzipping. But the new way is with provisioning. And you basically you build exactly what you want. So the hope is that you end up with a much smaller footprint, and it hopefully starts faster that way as well. And it makes it a little bit more container friendly for deployment, so you don't have these huge containers taking up space for no real reason. So Galleon is what we use for provisioning. You can provision custom Wildfly servers with it. you can choose the layers that you want. So everything's categorized into a layer. So there's specific layers. So you don't have to, like, if you don't ever use EJBs, you don't have to have EJBs or stuff like that. It helps to reduce the footprint on the disk quite a bit, actually. And it's all done just through a Maven plugin. So let's see, we'll switch over to look at a little bit of this. Maybe. Oh man. Sorry, ideas changed on me and it's confusing me. Let's see, maybe I can do it this way. Oh, sorry about this. Layouts. I can't get it into the mode where it wants to, where it allows me to change, move it. Let's try that. System settings. Yeah.
Here you just try and change the screen to that.
Yeah, I'm trying to move this over there, but usually I just double tap here. And
It should be at the bottom, where you share screen.
well, so this one's sharing, and all I want to do is, let's see, there's like, not minimize it, but like make it not. Usually my toolbar looks different, and something I did changed it when I was trying to put it in presentation mode, which I don't think it. Let me make sure it's not. Oh, here we go. Exit full screen. Never mind. It was in full screen. There we go.
No.
Sorry about that. And now, oh, wrong way. Now we will enter. Oops. Oh man. Presentation mode. Almost. All right, so we'll just look at the palm here. We can see. So this is where we're basically just configuring the provisioning here. And we won't worry too much about the feature packer channels yet, but that's because those you don't necessarily have to define. There's some definite defaults that just work. But this is the interesting part, is these layers. And the layers basically are saying, so we want the EE core profile, which is Jakarta JSON binding, Jakarta JSON processing, and Jakarta REST and CDI. And then we're also going to use JPA. We're using the H2 default data source, so it can configure a data source for us as the default data source. We want transactions because we're using JPA. And I added the core tools mostly for the Docker image we're going to create later so that it can shut itself down gracefully. But basically the core tools is just basically like things like access to a CL command line tool for managing the server and stuff like that.
Is the profile server like something that's used for all of them, or can you give me?
Yeah, so Jakarta EE now has 3 profiles. It has a core profile, which is just Jakarta REST, JSON binding, JSON processing, and CDI. And that's just like the core profile. And that's what, if you've heard of micro profile, that's what micro profile is based on. And there's the web profile, which adds faces, JPA, persistence, EJB Lite. I think transactions too. I can't remember all of them. And then there's the full profile, which is everything. Find my mouse again. There it is. Is it this way? Oh, how am I doing that?
I have another question for you.
Yep.
I've done with J2E in such a long time.
Yeah.
Is this like a standalone fat jar startup or is it something that still need to deploy and do it on server? But this is kind of dating on. This is like work with J2E.
Say that one more. Ask that one more time. Sorry.
Do you end up with like an executable jar spit out of this process?
You can.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't have to, but you can.
Yeah.
And that's typical of, I would say for most EE applications, it's not typical to have, we call it the bootable jar. That's what actually literally what we're about to talk about. But it's not the most typical, but I believe it's becoming more common. Right. No, you're good. So bootable jar.
Very good.
So basically the bootable jar, and this is Wildfly bootable jar. It's a single jar containing the application and the server in itself. And you effectively just run it with java-jar, myapp.jar. It's really good for containers and platforms like that because you just have this single thing that you deploy, right? And it's built with the Wildfly Maven Pro plugin. So now we'll switch back to the IDE again, and we can look down here, create a profile for this right there, the bootable jar profile. And basically, because the configuration is inherited, the only thing you do, and you can actually do this from the command line too, you don't have to do it from the plugin here, but you basically just add bootable jar true, and it creates a bootable jar. So we'll go ahead and run that real quick.
Command line options override the configuration.
Yep. Yeah, they're just system properties, like typical Maven type of thing. So if we run it here, and then actually let's do this. Just so I don't get a bunch of weird warning messages from Java 25. Package. P. Jar. Right. Yep. This is going to be a typical Maven build once it actually starts going here. You can ignore those warnings. That's a Maven 4 problem. But you can see here, it's starting to do the package. And so it's provisioning a server for us. It's resolving all the Maven artifacts we need. We could tell it's using Wildfly 39.0.1.final. That's the latest. Since we didn't define a version, it'll always go and look for the latest version. And now it's copying our deployment that we created, the root war to the jar.
Are there any issues where if you're running, are there any gotchas between the Java version you're running in and Wildfly version perhaps?
Not really, no. I mean, we test on rule was requires 17 as a minimum, so 17 through 25 is what we test on right now. So, and now if we just look in the, let's do this actually. H. Target. We can see the bootable jar right there and how much smaller it is. It's not some 400 megabyte thing. It's only 120 megabytes. And we can just go ahead and launch it. It takes a minute because it's got to unzip itself and then start itself up. Then go through the deployment process. And that's it. It's ready to go. Okay. Here. Which way do I go? This way? No, the other way. No, that's right. One of these days I'll figure out how the mouse works. There it is. Okay, so that's the bootable jar. Maybe I should have done these in a different order, but oh well. So now we'll look a little bit at testing Jakarta EE applications. So testing is not as painful as it used to be. It used to be when you tested a Jakarta EE application, it was a pain because you usually needed some kind of a database. You needed all these things. With Docker and just containers in general, that part makes it easier. And then there's tools that we'll go through here um, that kind of help with the whole approach of testing them. You can, unit tests are supposed to be focused and no container. With some of these modern tools, though, you really can use a container. We'll see one of the unit tests I have does use Wildfly, and it really doesn't take that long to boot. And then you can use integration tests for full stack. When you want to actually talk to to a real database or things like that. So the first one we'll look at is we'll just test a simple REST endpoint using a REST Easy JUnit extension. And what this does is it uses the REST SE Bootstrap to just boot a simple REST endpoint. Doesn't require Wildfly. It's just simple annotation based, and it's pretty fast to execute. It takes a minute to boot. Undertow in this case is what we're going to use, but it's generally pretty fast. So I'll switch back to this and mouse over there, and we'll find our test. It is this test, and this is just a silly test that I created based on this simple resource that just says, "Oops, that wasn't supposed to be that. It's supposed to be this right now." Test will fail if we don't do that. Yeah, pretty sure I can do that. That is not how you do it.
What happens when the test fails?
Yeah. Hold on. Is that bigger? I don't know if it is. It's usually just control.
Bolt plots.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. It's not doing it. Maybe it doesn't work in presentation mode.
All right, yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
Fine.
This will all be available if you really want to look too. Huh, yeah, apparently it doesn't work. And what's that? Or maybe it's because I'm in presentation mode and it's already bigger. Maybe that's why. I'm guessing. I really don't know.
Swallow my pride.
Oh, okay. So now we can just look at the test. And basically, all I've done is I've created an application down here. So for those not familiar with Jakarta REST, there's this application that you extend and you can annotate it with application path, which is the path where all your REST endpoints will listen on. And in this specific case, I'm just giving it a single resource to listen on. And then up here, I'm just using this at REST Bootstrap, which is part of the testing framework, the test extension. And I'm just giving it the application name, and it's going to boot that application. And then here, I'm injecting a web target, which is part of the Jakarta REST API. You usually get it through a client, but with the framework, with the test framework, you can just inject that, and you don't have to worry about opening the client, closing the client, deciding what the URL is or anything like that. It'll just figure all that out for you. And I'm adding this request path so I can do the test, and the status is the name of the resource up here. And then if we run it, I think this is how we can do it. Pretty much run all my tests from the command line. So I'm doing it through an IDE. I have to remember how to do it. It's doing something. Is it going to show it? Oh, it is good. So you can see that I should have fixed that.
Yeah. Well, I want to see a test fail, so it's.
Well, there's the red part. Yeah.
Well, that's just because S I left for J. I'm using a different.
Yeah.
I just needed to add a dependency, but I didn't. But yeah, you can see it's booting Undertow and it's doing it, and then it's testing. So let's we'll just change this one. Fail. Let's run it again. Health test should fail this time, but it should just be like a standard failure you would see in any JUnit test, basically. There you go.
Pretty fast concern is booting a REST server on the same.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a convenient way to, if you just have a simple REST resource, you just want to test it. no like special things behind it. In this specific case, with the version of Undertow I'm using and the way I implemented it in Rest Easy, it does work with CDI too, and obviously servlet because Undertow's a servlet container as well as just a container. But yeah, any questions on that stuff? It's fairly.
All these are Jakarta REST conditions, right?
Well, the ones in the test are not. Like this is, let's see, I can just, how do I expand this?
I think you click the dots, it'll fill it out. Maybe not.
This presentation mode is, I never use
Oh,
it, so I don't know what
Maybe
it,
not, yeah.
I think it's trying to keep everything big. But so this REST bootstrap, that is a for the JUnit extension that I created, and same with that REST request is, and then obviously this typical test JUnit. But the
Oh, there it goes.
oh yeah, IDEA has been giving me a lot of problems recently. Today it's been really slow, and I don't know why.
Okay.
So it's either something wrong with my laptop or something wrong with that, but I invalidated my caches and it's still slow. So I don't know what's going on. Anyway, there you go. Now you can see.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So now another testing tool I created this a couple months ago now is the Wildfly testing tools. And this is basically just a way to automatically handle the life cycle of Wildfly, very similar to how Archillion does, but it's significantly lighter weight. It just does per test deployments using shrink wrap, just like Archillion does, if anybody's familiar with Archillion at all. It has some minimal resource injection where you can inject a URI or you can inject a model controller client, which the model controller client is mostly useful if you want to manage things in Wildfly. You want to change a setting like in the actual configuration or anything like that. Probably not that typical for the average, tester, but for anything we're testing within Wildfly itself, it's very useful. And it's just, again, a simple alternative to Archillion. So we'll go ahead and look at one of those tests now. And these, let's see. So this is one of them right here. We'll just look at this one. Scroll to the top, and you can see I just basically, it's annotation driven. I just annotated with that @Wildfly tests. And in this specific case, I do use the method order because it's a CRUD application, right? So it's got to do things in order. I'm injecting using the server resource and this request path. I'm injecting a URI, and it's basically going to be the application URI plus API plus task. So like localhost 8080/API/task. Right here, I'm creating the deployment. So I generate the deployment. It does, it attempts to discover what kind of deployment that you want to create. So if that was an ear, it'd create an ear deployment for you. And then you can just add what you want to it. Typically, I wouldn't just add a whole package like this because it's going to add a bunch of stuff you don't actually need. We're adding the persistence because since we're using Wildfly itself, we have persistence. And we're going to add an empty beans XML so that it becomes a CDI application. And we'll just do a real quick look at the test. We're just doing a simple add there. We're using a REST client to do the add, and then we just make some assertions based on the add. And then we just validate that the listing that we added something, so we should get a list of something back if we hit the generic endpoint. And then we test that we can get a specific task, which is always, it's going to be task 1. Then we try to edit the task, make sure it's been edited. We complete the task, remove it, and then we delete it. And then we just basically just discover that, validate that everything works. That's all we're doing. So if we run it, should see it's booting Wildfly. Should see. And there we go. Going to run all the tests, and you can see that the first test takes a while because it's got to actually boot Wildfly, and the rest of the tests, they're pretty fast after that.
If a test in the sequence fails, does it stop at that point?
No, it should keep going.
But if these are in sequence.
Oh, I guess yeah, they would one would. So if correct, yes, if one fails, the rest would fail as well. Well, somewhat, I should say. So like we can make one fail. Let's make the
I'm just wondering why you would
this.
continue with such a sequence when you already know the results after the first fail are invalid.
I think you're probably down to
Yeah, what JUnit does.
What JUnit gonna do, which is going to run all of them.
Yep, but we'll make it fail so we can see what happens. There might be. I should look at the document. Maybe that's not how you do it. Try it this way again. There might be a way in JUnit 5 or 6 now that allows you to basically not short circuit, but like well, I guess effectively short circuit if one of the tests fails. But I've honestly never looked at it because usually I want to see it if everything fails or if one thing fails, just because I don't normally use this order annotation. You're not really supposed to. It's discouraged, you know.
Right.
But you can see, yeah. So the rest of them ran fine. That one didn't. 'Cause I told it to expect 2 entries when there's definitely only one. Okay, so this leaves the question of when to use what. So typically you would just use like the REST easy JUnit extension if you're only testing a REST endpoint, and that's all you really care about is making sure that your REST endpoint is giving back what you expect. You can use the Wildfly testing tools if you want something, if you're using Wildfly because it's not going to work with anything else. And you just need a really simple setup that's pretty quick, pretty easy to use. And then you can use Archillion for if you want your test to run inside the container itself. And that's still a very valid use case. It did the Jakarta E, TCK, the microprofile TCKs, Wildfly itself, they all still use Archillion quite extensively. So now we'll look at the Maven plugin and creating a cloud-ready Docker deployment. So what the plugin does is it builds a Docker image directly from Maven. And it does this by creating a Docker file. It just generates a Docker file and then basically execute commands on the in a new process. And then it supports a bootable jar or a traditional deployment, either one, whatever your preference is. And it's all just, you just execute Maven package and then the Wildfly image goal. So we can show that real quick too. Actually, we'll start here. The IDE, and we'll go back to the POM so we can look at the configuration. Somewhere in here. Create a profile. So the create image, and basically all we're doing is we're just executing the image goal at the package goal. So in our specific case, all we really need to do is run in clean package with the profile enabled. Let it do its thing. Just compiling, formatting my sources. And here you can see it's provisioning the server for the image. Again on Wildfly 39. Now you can see it's doing the actual Docker build itself. So now if we look in our images, we can see it here. Oh, well, I got to clean some things up, but you can see it there. the name of it is task examples, and that's like it uses the artifact ID as the default name. And we'll just go ahead and boot it. Why not, right? Better map the ports so it actually knows what to listen to. Example. We can see it's just going to basically boot up in Podman.
You said the packaging supports both fat jar and also traditional. Is there any reason you would want to do like a traditional packing? You're all packaging and doctor.
Yeah, I don't. To me personally, I would say no. I would always go the traditional route in a way, over the bootable jar in something like this, because I can go in the container and I can see more things. Whereas when you have the bootable jar, it's going to extract the server to a temporary location, and it's not a lot of overhead, but I mean some overhead. And you're in an image container, so I mean everything's containerized anyway. So that's what I would do. Some people prefer it, just not. I mean, personal opinion, just not me. But we can go here. Let's see. I think I can just do this. Open a new tab, and we'll just have a quick look, so you can just see that it's actually running, and it is. Oh man. Oh, it's weird, isn't it? Test. And we can see it shows up. That's that. I gotta figure it out. Oh, I better stop the container, huh? Just let it exit. We don't need to watch that. All right, so just putting it all together. We'll just do it's basically just a simple REST API for managing tasks. It uses REST, persistent CDI, and transactions, as we saw. It uses the multiple testing approaches, which we'll run the command here in a minute to show. And we showed, there's multiple ways to deploy it. Go ahead and, oh, that's still running. Okay. There we go. That's an error I need to look at. I don't know what that is yet, but it has something to do with service sent events, I think. Oh, this is where I want to be. I want to be over. We're over there. So now we'll just run all the tests right from here, just so you can see what it looks like. There. Yeah, I spelled that right. So this will actually end up running the simple REST test. It filters out and does a different execution in Surefire for the Wildfly test, and then it does in an integration test. It actually uses Archillion, so you can see you can actually use them all together if you really want to. There's no real reason to, but you can.
The fail back to up.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's gonna fail.
I think it's gonna fail the pipe,
There you go.
remember.
Yep, you're right. So let's fix that. Once I find the mouse again. Oh, there it is. We'll just revert these tests back. Okay, let's try that again. This time, hopefully it passes. We can see I set it up to actually, I should have showed that, but I'm setting it up to provision a server for testing too. So I don't have to go out and download anything or have Wildfly running. It just goes, provisions it, starts it, manages it. You can see our first test is running. That's the Rest Easy one. Now the next one is running with the Wildfly testing tools. And again, it takes a minute because it's got to start Wildfly. Self usually doesn't take that long. But you can see the second one executes pretty fast after that. And now we're doing Archillion, so it's got to start Wildfly again. So normally you wouldn't do that, but just for display purposes.
Is there a way to set up test means that the startup can be washed out of the rest of the tests?
For Archillion, yes, you can start the server remotely, and then use a different extension to basically just to run it. For the testing tools, no. I mean, it's something. I mean, something I created like a month ago. I can always add things. But that's it. So now we'll just do a real quick demo of just kind of how it all works. Or I guess we should look at it first. Probably makes more sense. So we'll go up and we'll just kind of look at each type, right? So this is just a registry, and what this is, it's a request scope CDI bean, and I'm making it transactional because we're going to use an entity manager to basically persist tasks back and forth. Just have your simple get task, which is just get everything. We have get task by ID, so you can just get the single task. This one actually, I forgot, get tasks. You can actually get tasks that are only completed, not completed, or all tasks, basically. It's just your typical CRUD type of thing that you would see at any Jakarta persistence type of.
I've been in Spring World for so long. CDI is what again?
Context and dependency is Spring DI. Yeah.
I had to look it up myself too.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, stop me if you. I mean, I'm used to saying and hearing all these terms all the time. So if they're unfamiliar to anybody, please let me know.
Okay. I'm gonna do. I don't know what the build system you're talking about.
Archillion.
Never heard of
So
it.
Archillion was developed a long time ago now, and it's basically just a test framework for testing Jakarta applications. And I mean, you can actually, there's lots of things to test now, but and basically it's just a framework that originally started with JUnit 4. So and it's basically a testing framework, and it allows you to like write a test that you can run on whoever has an adapter. So Wildfly, Open Liberty, Glassfish, Tommy, Tomcat, any of those that have, and you could run the same test against any of them without having to rewrite your test. The priority is fairly, just a typical enum, nothing special about it. Your task, this is the actual entity. So this is your persistence entity where we defined a couple named queries. There could be better ways to do this now. I'm not really a persistence expert, so this is the old way that I did it 20 years ago. So this is how I still kind of do it. There is a Jakarta data now too, but I don't really know how to use it yet. So, but that's like Spring. It's based on Spring data effectively. And then we have this entity listener, and this we'll look at here in a second. But the interesting part there is that's how we let the server sent events know that something's been added, removed, completed, or whatever. And this is basically just typical data transfer type of stuff. We'll skip the health resource. It's really not very useful. So back to context dependency inject to CDI. They have I'm producing a type. I'm telling it, say, hey, produce this type that's application scoped, SSE broadcaster, and then it manages the lifecycle. And here you can see when it disposes it, when it's done, it closes the broadcaster. This is just a simple REST activation. All you have to do is make sure that that you extend application. Let's extend this so you can see Jakarta ws.rs. Core that application, and then this is the application path. So we're having it all REST endpoints need to listen on /API. And here's idea being slow again. I'm hoping it's idea, not my laptop.
I think it's probably.
Yeah, there's been an issue that was fixed that had a memory leak, but I'm pretty sure that's it because it was eating like 10 gigabytes of memory. Well, hopefully it didn't just freeze on me. Well, we discovered it. Anyway, so the task listener is basically a persistence, it's a REST endpoint and a persistence listener. And what it does is subscribe to server sent events. And then anytime something is updated in the database, it talks back to the web page to tell it that a server sent event happened. It's doing something.
There. Wow.
Yeah, it's painful. This is the first day it's done it, of course. And it's been driving me crazy. I've restarted my laptop, I think, like 4 times, thinking that's going to fix it. It has not fixed it. Just in case you were curious. Oh, there we go. So you can see I'm injecting this SSE, which is a Jakarta REST API, and as well as this SSE broadcaster, which we created in our producers. And I have this simple subscribe event. So you sent a server sent event from the get event, and that registers it, start listening, and then every time something happens in the persist, so something gets persisted or updated or removed, it notifies the client by creating a new event and just basically notifying it. And then I'm scared to click it. Oh, it's working. Then we just have this simple resource where we inject the task registry, we inject the URI info so we can spit a path back out anytime anything's added to make it a nice, good REST service. And it's just a fairly basic Jakarta REST service, something real special about it or anything like that. And the web page itself is, again, just a very simple web page built on, of course, Bootstrap, because it's the only way I can make anything look good. Well, decent. I won't say good. That just is backed by fairly simple JavaScript. Nothing super fancy. So now switch back to command line and run it real quick. Now I'm just going to use the dev goal here. And basically what this does is this is also a work in progress of something I've been working on, where it just does the compiling. It invokes the compiler, invokes like the war plugin or ear, but no, just the war. It doesn't work with ears yet. Which, why do you use ears anymore? I don't know, but and then it provisions the server, starts it, deploys it, and then it basically just sits there and listens on the source path for any changes. And it may redeploy the application if it's just like something, as if it's a resource that doesn't require recompiling, like the change in JavaScript, then it doesn't do that. It just copies it over, and then it should just, the server itself should see it. I'll go ahead and escape here. Go back to, oh, there you are. Go back to here, and we'll start this. We're actually going to start 2 of these, so you can kind of see how the server sent events look too. So we're up and running. So we can just add a task. Task 1. We add it, we see it there, and if we switch back to this other screen, we can see that a task was added. And if we check it off here, there we go. See it go away there, but if we look over here, it's been checked off. If we add a task over here, task 2, and we'll make this one urgent just because. We'll add it, and we can see it's a little different color, and we can see it over here. But we can undo this task. It'll be seen over here, and that's how like the service sent events work through the persistence. Or if we delete one, it'll be deleted over here too.
Just start following clients, start sending, calling rep guy,
Mhm.
saving that thing. The save is triggering a server side event and pushing it out to the client.
Correct.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Okay. So that's pretty much that. Let's go this way. Trying to figure out how to get my mouse back over here. Doing it earlier. Up here. No. Well, let's see if I can just go to the other slide from here. Oh, I can. Perfect. That's it, really. I'll share these slides and share all the code and everything like that if anybody wants to look at it. So you can get more information about Jakarta E, Wildfly, the Wildfly Maven plugin, or the Wildfly testing tools. They all have their own websites. Or really, the Maven plugin and test tools is just documentation. I wouldn't call it a website necessarily, but it's documentation. It's at least documented. Yeah, and I guess that's it. If anybody has any questions, now's the time.
Which one of these do you work on? Use all of them, or
Yes.
How
Yes.
large are each of these teams?
Well, right now, okay, so I previously worked for Red Hat. We moved to, in July, we all moved, not all, but a big chunk of the middleware team all moved to IBM. And we lost all our coworkers that were in China. Like IBM doesn't have a presence in China, so they didn't get to come over with us. So right now on Wildfly, the team's much bigger. I'm not the project lead of that; somebody else is. For the Maven plugin, the testing tools, Rest Easy, it's pretty much just me right
I think got a wildfly question, and maybe this is for all applications.
now. Sure.
I conceptually, I have a hard time seeing how an application engine like Wildfly or Glassfish could scale horizontally to deal with demands. How does that work?
So it just depends.
Usually in the application mode where you're sending the WAR,
Yeah,
you're loading the WAR.
Yeah, it just depends. So like Wildfly itself, like when it's going through the deployment process, it does it in a parallel manner. So it's going to deploy things parallel. So like if you have a whole bunch of deployments, it's going to deploy them all at the same time unless you specify, please order these ones this way. And for scaling, like with requests and stuff like that, it just really depends. Like that's really going to be part of the configuration. You can configure like there's the web server component, which in Wildfly's case is Undertow, and it's basically going to you can tell it to accept this many requests, the size of requests. Like there's all kinds of configuration parameters. I mean, it's very, very configurable. Okay, basically.
So what's the hierarchy between, say, Docker, Wildfly, Maven, and let's go in Kubernetes in terms of deploying a major service?
It depends. People do it in all kinds of ways. So like, I mean, there's still a lot of, customers running legacy applications that still download the full zip, they unzip it, they have a dedicated server for this one thing, they deploy to it, they have maybe 20 apps running on it. And there's some.
Let me play this way. What would you recommend? If I'm a new business starting up a new service and I have carte blanche, how should I arrange those tools?
That's a great question. And that's something that I struggle with because I've been heads down in the back end side for so long that
I don't know it's an acceptable answer.
Yeah. That from a user perspective, I don't know what the cool things are these days. I'm not going to lie. I've done this for just too long. But I would say the typical pattern seems to be some kind of Azure, OpenShift, some cloud thing where you either use a bootable jar or you create an image of some sort and deploy that. That seems to be the typical current pattern for anything new. That's where things like Quarkus that you mentioned earlier and, Spring Boot and stuff like that, that's where those things are used a lot in.
So having like a Wildfly server that's dedicated to only one WAR is pretty normal then.
Yeah,
Like in a microservice.
it's
type
becoming
thing.
more normal. It didn't used to be, but it's definitely becoming more normal.
Yeah, when I was working with, I didn't work with it, but a company I worked with had it, and it was kind of like, you deployed all these ears to the server, and conceptually, I don't see how that could work in today's environment where you're trying to scale everything with
Well,
microservices.
Yeah.
Let me throw in the next step. If I had a load balancer,
Mhm.
would I just be throwing the wars on each node underneath the load balancer?
Well, there's all kinds of ways to do it. So Wildfly actually has clustering where it can do that on its own. You basically just deploy the war once and it handles it for you. So it'll
So you would tell it what servers you have.
correct.
Nice.
It helps to know some of the history, J2E before the cloud ever got here.
Yeah.
It was kind of doing what the cloud does, right? Like it was,
Okay.
you would deploy your application, which is just like, this is my REST service.
Mhm.
And then the application server would handle replicating it to all the nodes and
Yeah.
setting up the load balancer for you. Like all that was being done in a J2E server, which is now Jakarta E.
Yeah.
So like that deployment model was still there. Obviously, there's a lot of
And that's why I was wondering where Docker fit in. Is it Wildfly using Docker, or is it Docker using Wildfly?
So it would be Docker using Wildfly. I mean, basically, the plugin itself, in a way, uses Docker, but it just uses it to create the image. It doesn't do anything else with it after
So
that.
there's like a build. Wildfly is responsible for building,
Correct.
creating a container, and then Docker is responsible.
Correct.
So it sounds kind of like having Wildfly and Kubernetes would kind of be redundant.
not necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, you would in production you'd probably use Kubernetes over Docker, but in a test environment you might use Docker over Kubernetes type of thing.
I'm getting the impression that Kubernetes does a better job with nodes coming up and down. Your actual servers. Like
Yeah.
you decide to add more, remove more, or you can tell Kubernetes traffic goes up, add more.
I think if you were going to apply this model to like Kubernetes world, you'd probably spit out an image that creates the REST service, right?
Mhm.
And then you would deploy that image and have Kubernetes scale it. And,
Yeah.
like put it behind a service and
Yeah, pretty much.
Key point being make sure your server is stateless for the most part, except
Yeah.
for like when you're running the data.
Yeah. Yeah, which that's fairly the application is fairly stateless. I mean, it could could persist it with a database, but like a long lived database, but I didn't do that.
They used to have a dinosaur that had state in a server.
Yeah.
Poor choice.
Yes. Yes, it is. Cool. Anything else?
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys.
Grab the pizza sweets and
Oh, I plan to create a couple songs.
would you be able to send me the code?
Yeah, definitely. I'll put it all up on GitHub.
Oh, the GitHub is
Oh yeah, I guess I gotta figure out how we share that stuff now. But if you give me like your email if you want or some way to contact you, I can definitely email it to
We
you.
usually
yeah.
if you're on the meetup, we usually put all the stuff on the meetup, like in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forever ago, we used to have a mailing list, and I don't know what. I mean, I'll just age myself because I don't know what people use these days. And instead of a mailing list, is that I gotta look at what that is. Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've been in.
Yeah, I guess
It's been a long time since I don't think I presented for 10 years.